with those tickets. More chances every hour up until 7 p.m. Our in-studio guest, Mark McGrath from Sugar Ray, is here. Let me ask you a question. With the news this morning of Chris Cornell's passing, 52 years old, lead singer of Soundgarden, Audio Slave, of course, a solo career as well.
Yep.
Very sad news. Did you have any relationship at all with Chris Cornell?
You know, I've met him in passing a few times.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even say I was an acquaintance. You know, you do all these award shows and things like that. And I believe he did a Camp Freddy appearance a few times, which is now Royal Machines. But never had time to really sit down and get to meet the man. From what I've heard, he was the greatest guy ever, nicest guy ever, and what a talent. And it's such a drag.
Yeah, what a voice.
My prostate's so large, I wake up every night to pee at 3 in the morning. You know what I mean? And so I look at my phone, and then I see Chris Cornell as the trending trending thing on Twitter.
That's
I
never
go,
good.
no. I go, no. And then to hear the news, it broke my heart. So I'm still trying to articulate my thoughts, you know. I mean, I'm sure you guys are too. I mean, when you lose someone of that magnitude, it takes a while to resonate. And then you look back at what you always want to appreciate someone here when they're on Earth, and we do. But when you lose someone like Prince, you lose a Scott Weiland, you lose a Chris Cornell. I think it's going to take a while for all of us to sort of mourn the loss.
Yeah.
You know, and what's the strangest thing is there were no clues. I know people are kind of putting together these. You know, the last song they played was Led Zeppelin's "In My Time of Dying," and you know, Soundgarden was pretty dark to begin with. You know, all those songs kind of dealt with that kind of content.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I saw the last tweet was, "Hey, getting ready to play Detroit Rock City tonight." You know what I mean? So I'm curious to see what more comes out of the whole story, but it's just such a drag.
I mean, the guy certainly had his demons.
Yeah, I mean,
You know?
Look he was the lead singer. You know, that's what we're born with, demons. You know, that's what we play with to get to a certain point. But, and from what I understand, though, he had him in control. But you never know.
Yeah.
You never know. You know, I mean, look what happened to Scott Weiland. It's a drag. It's you know, I wish I was the one that could speak eloquently on something like this. I feel obviously a fraternal bond towards Chris, but as just a fan, it's just a dramatic and tragic loss. But you know, we'll always have that voice, man. One of the best voices ever.
Unbelievable. Yeah, and super sad on a couple different levels because we.
I'm sorry. Did you meet him? Did you interview him a few times?
Oh yeah. I mean, a number of times.
Yeah.
What
were your thoughts?
And just always like a really cool guy, super talented. Like you can listen to the guy sing the phone book.
Yeah.
Just with one of the best, most pure rock and roll voices. And I always talked about Scott Weiland the same way as like just a pure performer. The energy and the vibe of any Stone Temple Pilots show is just unbelievable.
Right.
We saw Scott Weiland not long before his death. We interviewed him, and we thought he might die during the interview.
Yeah.
Like he looked awful. Whereas people were talking about like this show last night, Soundgarden in Detroit, that they sounded great. He looked great.
You see the footage? You're like, I can't believe this guy is going to be dead a couple hours later. I'm confused.
Yeah.
I don't know how to articulate my feelings. It does suck.
There's reports. I mean, TMZ is reporting a couple different things, but one of the initial reports that we got this morning was that the local police, they were investigating it just because of what they saw at the scene. They were investigating it as a suicide. TMZ is reporting that they're calling it a band. A band around his neck. And so, I mean, that could be anything. I mean, that could be autoerotic asphyxiation type stuff. But I mean, the speculation is unfair at this point. But they're working obviously with the medical examiner. But dude, I mean, the people that you feel the worst for are his wife and
3 kids.
Yeah. So I mean, they're just really sad. But beyond even just the person, I think a lot of people, and when someone like that dies, I know like for me, when Scott Weiland dies, like I wasn't personal friends with Scott Weiland. I loved him as a performer. I loved the band. But when somebody like that, like somebody that had such an influence, I think, in your teenage years, on the music that you loved or that represent a time in your life, because music always has that effect, right?
Yes, absolutely. Music's super personal, too. So you internalize music, and it becomes a family member.
Yeah.
Now, if you really are that invested in music and it means that much to you, and people listening, I'm sure are, as we all are in this room. And so it is like losing, you feel like almost like a family loss. That's what hurts because Chris Cornell means a lot to me.
Yeah,
really does, and it's hard, in my own personal way, and to lose that, it hurts. It's tough. It's very tough.
Yeah, it's funny, like the music of the '80s, because I was younger. I was born in '76, so the music of the '80s to me is nostalgic in a different way. Like that's more of like a feeling or an emotion, right? Whereas the music of the '90s, I was a teenager and I was becoming a young adult. And so I have specific memories of specific places and times with songs from the 90s. So it's like a completely different. So when I was driving in this morning, after I woke up this morning and saw the same thing you did, of Chris Cornell's passing. It's like, man. And then I started doing the same thing that I did when Scott Weiland died. I started remembering all of a sudden, like, oh, there was that song. Oh, and there was that song. So I listened to nothing but Soundgarden and Chris Cornell on the way in.
You go through your mind Rolodex.
Yeah.
The years go by. Go
Outshined and Pretty Noose and
Black Hole Sun,
Black Hole
My
Sun,
Way.
Spoon Man, all the day
Rusty
I tried
Cage.
to live, and
Yeah.
all those songs. And then even like there was one song, man, I know it wasn't like a big hit, but Chris Cornell had a really great song called "Long Gone." It was a single that it came out. It was in the 2000s, but there was something about that song that, you know, when people say things and you could tell they really don't mean it. This song had such a sincerity to it. And if you haven't heard it, listen to it. But I love that song. It's a beautiful song.
Oh yeah,
It's a great song, and it's one of his solo. I want to say that was like 2009 or something like that. But look it up if you have Spotify or whatever. But anyway,
that's what you were saying though. He could emote anything. I mean, he's saying Billie Jean and interpreted his own in an acoustic manner, and it gave it a different feel, and it put a beauty to that too. And gave a beauty to these songs that, I mean, we're always there, but they're coming through his voice, and it felt like he meant every bit of Billie Jean. And he didn't even write it, and that's a true talented artist.
Yeah.
And
Super sad.
It's super sad.